I bought a multifamily with no money out of my pocket. All in on that property almost 20 years ago now was $90,000. It's now worth over $300,000. Still to this date, the best investment property I've ever bought.
I think a lot of people, if it ain't broke, they're like, why should I fix it?
Because in commission sales, if you don't sell anything, you don't get paid. Never chase the deal, chase the relationship. At the end of the day, we are in customer service. How many clients we can serve is the ultimate reflection of our business.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the Agent to Investor podcast, where we talk about the agent side of real estate investing. We'll be talking about the successes, the failures, and all in between. My name is Nico Garcia, local real estate agent and investor based out of Montgomery County, Maryland. And as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host.
I'm Anna Bialik, Northern Virginia realtor and mostly out-of-state investor. Never have to warn you about this off camera. If I make faces, it's because I pulled something in my shoulder and it keeps like tweaking. So be warned if I make weird faces.
You're aging yourself already.
Shut up.
And today we have another wonderful guest, one of my good friends who is an agent. He is an investor, a property manager. I'm probably missing out on a few things. Also a father of 5 beautiful kids. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me, buddy. I appreciate it.
Awesome. And, we always like to give you a little bit of space to introduce yourself and what initially got you introduced to real estate.
Yep. So, as you said, my name is Chris Thompson. I am a realtor, a property manager, a contractor, an investor, a coach, and a husband, first of all, and a father. So I wear a lot of different hats, kind of doing all kinds of different things, but it all really just ties back in together. I have been in the business now for 19 years. August will be 20. My dad was an agent and an investor for 25 years. Which is what brought me into the business, and graduated college in 2006, stumbled around trying to find a job, could not find one. And right at graduation, my dad met me at the end of the stage, said, "Congratulations, you have 60 days. I kind of looked at him like, what are you talking about? 60 days till you're cut off, or you move home and you go to real estate school. Oh man. And I never wanted to do it because I saw the hours that my dad was putting in. I was like, no, I'm gonna find something to make just as much money, but not work as hard. That was funny. Excuse me. So 75 days later, I moved back to Maryland from North Carolina, extremely broke. And the following Monday, I was in real estate school getting my license.
Okay, so agent came first in the story.
Yes, agent definitely came first on this one. And with the kind of investor, I guess, background, how my parents put me through college was my dad flipped. And that is what ultimately gave me a large leg up. So I didn't come out of school with, a large debt hanging over my head. And I think 6 months after being home, I bought my first house. And even as an agent, it was not the traditional route. I bought my first house on the Courthouse steps down in Rockville. And it was very scary because at the whopping age of 23, I had no idea what to do. And I kept looking at my dad like a lost puppy, basically. What do I do? What do I do? And then I won the bid and was like, oh, yay. Oh, wait,
what do I do?
Here's my entire life savings. Oh, shoot. And to kind of backtrack a little bit, in college, I was on a lacrosse scholarship. I had a full class load and I worked 3 jobs. And my parents still supported me. Bless them for that. So, putting in the hours, it was something I was already used to and kind of built for. It just, at 23 or at the time 22 was like, I don't want to work that hard. No, goodness no. And now 20 years after that, it's like, 18 hours. No, just a half a day today. Sure.
Yeah.
Chris, talk to us about...
It just kind of rolls with it. So
yeah. Talk to us about those early stages. So I know you mentioned your dad was an investor and, he had a great real estate background. Did he teach you anything before you ended up going into the space yourself? Like other than, working really hard? And I know that there's a few, technology has helped a lot with real estate, but what did he teach you in the beginning stages?
Before I got into it, he tried teaching me a lot. I was just too ignorant to pay attention. Oh, whatever, dad, whatever. So I kind of wish I paid more attention then. But when I first started, I kind of came in as like an admin for him. And 20 years ago, people were still doing, multiple page spreads in magazines. The centerfold was both pages was all of my dad's listings. If you drove through anywhere in Damascus, up or down 27 or 124, you were bound to see several of his signs. He was dubbed one of the nicknames. So when I first came really working for him, he kind of sat me down and was like, look, I'm not a great teacher, but I know how to do this. And the best way that I'm going to be able to teach you is you just shadow me. So I would say for probably the first year, I went on every single listing appointment, every buyer appointment, and just followed him and just kind of held back and just watched how he ran his business. And then from there started taking, hey, you're doing it this way. If we shift it this way, I think it'll kind of streamline things. The whole can't teach an old dog new tricks. He was receptive, but I would have to go put in all of the groundwork first to be able to provide, I guess, proof of concept before he would say, okay to it. And I think that made me learn it a lot better and faster, because I would have to then break everything down so that I could then turn around and re-explain it to him and show him why. Hey, if we change this marketing to that, then it's going to do this. And I think that doing a lot of that groundwork really helped.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, if it ain't broke, they're like, why should I fix it? But I think that probably set you up to be able to pivot, because I'm sure he didn't expect all this technology to happen in the last 10 years. I mean, probably in the last decade or so. Like, technology has come fast and furious, and a lot of agents have kind of been left behind because they're like, no, that's never going to change the ways. And then they end up realizing that everything is different.
It's insane. And the biggest thing to that, because I still talk to my dad often a lot about business still. Once we get to the investing side, he's actually one of my private money lenders. So apparently I'm doing something right. But we laugh about it now, because with everything with AI now, that was social media for him 20 years ago. It's like, I don't know it. I don't want to know it. I'm never gonna do it. So you go figure it out. Yep. And now I'm sitting in his shoes and I'm like, I have to do this. Otherwise I will not exist anymore. So now we laugh and I'm like, hey, you remember when you complained about social media? Yeah. Well, that's AI for me now. I have to figure all this stuff out.
Yeah. So whether intentional or not, he taught you a lesson in being adaptable by making you prove the concept. So I'm curious, was your dad an investor first or an agent first? Like, how did that come about? Because it sounds like he was a solid agent, not that he was an investor that became an agent to buy his own deals.
Right. He was agent first. That was second career for him. He had always been in sales, and I believe was basically on his own, paying his own way since he was about 16. He was doing mattress retail sales and got out of that and then got into real estate. And from there, no different than any new agent starting out, how do you find business? At the time he started, he was with Long & Foster in Damascus, and that's where they ran the property management division from. So he took that on to pay the bills, basically, because in commission sales, if you don't sell anything, you don't get paid. So he did that and then started just building a brand, a reputation, and really just kind of going after it. And when we left Long & Foster, he had been the top agent in the Damascus area for 10 plus years.
So I think the benefit of becoming an agent is, I'll speak for myself, is kind of understanding the whole process of buying a home the traditional way, right? You know, the home inspections, the appraisals, all the paperwork. You know, you're in Maryland just like me, so I know you know. And then, you know, once you decide to go into the investing world, and we'll talk about how you got your first investment property, you kind of already know the steps. And not only that, you're also building relationships with, you know, local vendors, other agents. Maybe you can get pocket listings and things like that. So that's one of the reasons why I liked the way we started is, you know, becoming agents. So then I got really curious about the investing side and made me learn a lot more and noticed that there's a lot of people doing that. And a lot of agents that don't really know that side. So I'd love to talk about, like, I know you mentioned you bought it at the courtyard,
Courthouse steps.
Courthouse steps. What kind of a deal did that look like? Was that one that you were house hacking, or was it strictly investment property?
That was for me to live in. And because when I first moved back, I moved to Urbana. I was living with my brother. And then it was, you know, really time for me to take that next step and buy my house. Looking back on it, I should have house hacked it. It would have been a lot better financially, but I liked being alone. When I was in college, I had 3 roommates, great guys, but we were one of the 2 lacrosse houses, and there was a lot of people there all the time. It was it was a party house. No ifs or buts about it. So, going from that to, you know, I'm working 8, 10, 12 hours at a time. When I got home, I just wanted to kind of veg out and do nothing, which worked usually during the week. But being a new agent, I needed to bring in some cash flow. So hindsight, yes, I should have had some roommates, and that would have essentially, you know, paid for me to live there. Especially at that time, hadn't even heard of house hacking, but it's something I should have done. And so to help fill the gap, one of my jobs in college was bartending and bar backing. So I picked up a couple of jobs in DC, and my weekends were not my own. I would do showings, open houses, you know, all the typical new agent stuff from, you know, 9 till about 5. And then I would load up and go down to DC till 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning working, come back and do it all over again. And that's where I spend my Friday and Saturday evenings. Was just working, coming back, picking back up on the real estate thing. So I'm glad I did it because I think it really humbled me also. But in the same breath, I should have had at least one roommate.
Yeah. Talk to us about those early stages, right? I know you mentioned you bought the property. In hindsight, you would have loved that to house hack it. But what would you say? I mean, there's a lot of agents that listen to this, right? And the newer agents know it's a grind. It's a grind to get that book of business. You know, you're doing open houses, yes, you're doing showings, and it is a grind. But what advice would you say to people that are obviously new? Would you say that they should also look into the investing side, not only helping people buy and sell, but also look into it for your own?
Absolutely. Because roughly a year after I bought that, I put a contract in on my first true investment property. So this was 2007. As you know, end of 2006 is when the market started to tank. 2003, 2004, 2005 were amazing. First half of 2006 were amazing, at least locally here. And that's when everything kind of started to tank. 2007 is when we first started seeing short sales. And if you weren't 50 years old, you didn't know what a short sale was. A lot of the seasoned agents didn't want to deal with that business. And that is kind of what took me down that path. So I put a contract on this townhouse in Frederick. It had 3 liens against it. There was a first mortgage, a second mortgage, and a tax lien. That took 13 months to get approved.
Wow.
Which is why they didn't want to deal with it.
Still to this date, the best investment property I've ever bought. And mostly because of time. And that is the number one thing that I could preach to anybody. I mean, we hear it all over the place. The biggest one is probably Warren Buffett. Time and compound interest. All in on that property almost 20 years ago now was $90,000. It's now worth over 300,000.
Chris, talk to us about that time. I mean, that's the housing crisis, the crisis of 2008, and you mentioned a lot of short sales. So for those in the audience that don't know what that is, what is a short sale, and why was it beneficial to you as an investor for an investment property?
I think the best way to explain that is I bought a house for $200,000. It is now only worth $100,000, and my mortgage is still at $180,000. Most people hear the term short sale and I'm like, oh, it's going to go fast. The complete opposite. All it is somebody is trying to sell their home short of what is owed to the bank on it. And instead of that seller writing a check to sell the house, they're asking their bank to eat the loss. That kind of destroys their credit. And I wish I knew about Subject 2 back then, because that would have helped a lot of people. And I think with the potential projections in the coming markets, I think that's going to be a great opportunity to be able to help a lot of sellers also. But the short sale was, like I said, 13 months, and I got a heck of a deal on it. I was cash flowing, I think, $300 on that. And, I thought I was, God's gift to everything, because that was like the greatest thing ever. And, hindsight, I wasn't. But it was a great deal. And I just sold that property under a lease with option for over $300,000. I forget the exact price. And it's phenomenal. Stacking that on top of going back to being the agent, a lot of the seasoned agents did not want to deal with the short sales. So that's actually how I started to really get my own business and kind of start branching away from my dad as not just, hey, this is Rick's kid. It's, oh, hey, yeah, he's Rick's kid, but he does this. And a lot of people around my age had bought homes in 03, 4, 5, even 6, and they were upside down. They needed out. And thankfully, a lot of them called me to help them out of situations. So that really just kind of helped open up my business to, I'll take on the stuff that nobody else wants to. So there's some advice for new agents. Find the thing that nobody else wants to do and go do that.
Yeah. And I guess I want to point out too, like, you bought this house and you sold it for 3x what you bought it for, but you also had a tenant, I assume, in there that was paying the mortgage off. So it's not like you were paying for this over the years. So just in case anybody missed that, like, someone else paid off this house for you, and you tripled your income. So I wanted to point that out. The other thing I want to ask you, because you mentioned current projections, you lived through the past market. We did not. I was working for the government at that point. What do you see as far as similarities and differences between that market and what people are seeing now? Because I know some people are like, oh my God, the sky is falling. But I know lending practices are different. So maybe not exactly the same scenario. Like, what do you see comparing? What's your crystal ball say?
Back then, if you could fog a mirror, you could get a mortgage. And the best thing to relate that to is the movie The Big Short. Phenomenal movie, and they are very detailed in it. I had to watch it 3 or 4 times to really kind of grasp everything. And phenomenal movie, so I highly recommend going to look at that. I think one of the biggest differences now is equity. A lot of people bought in, the boom in 2001. So they have kind of dirt cheap interest rates, and prices have doubled in a lot of areas, if not more. So if somebody is a job loss or job relocation, facing foreclosure for whatever reason, they're not going to even look to do a short sale because they have plenty of equity. They're not necessarily going to get what they want for it, but they're not going to have to write a check to sell their house. So I think those are the two biggest differences, is negative equity versus lots of equity. I also don't think it's going to be nearly as bad, if it even happens at all. I don't know. I think we are going into a normal market, which for anybody who doesn't know, a normal market is 6 months worth of inventory.
Mhm.
For the last 5 to 8 years, we haven't seen that.
Yep.
So it's just, we're going to see more inventory. It's going to take more time to sell a home. You can't just put it in the computer and have 4 contracts. Those still happen. I'm still seeing some multiple offers, but I'm also starting now to see it locally that the days on market are starting to stretch out. There's more homes available on the market, which as a buyer's agent, sometimes it's good for that because now that buyer has more options.
Mhm.
So I think it's going to be a really great time to buy. And depending on that seller's circumstances, it may not be the best time to sell. And there's, countless different what ifs that can go down,
Yeah.
either path. But that's kind of what I'm seeing kind of happening with everything.
Yeah. Is there a specific skill set you think newer agents or agents in general, like you said, short sales was the skill set from before? Any
Well-
skill sets in that, I'll say, distressed seller arena or that realm that you think people should be focusing on without giving away too many of your secrets and recognizing that half the people that listen to this won't actually do the work?
And I'm glad you brought that point up. I'm from the mindset of I'm going to show you my entire playbook and ask you to come beat me. Like you just said, 98% of them won't even consider it. The other 2%, okay, we're going to compete. Okay, great. I like competition. It makes me better. It makes me have to be better, and it makes them have to be better. So the end result, the client's getting better service. Whether I win or whoever I'm competing against wins, they're getting better service. So for the end client, which is who we're supposed to be working for, they're the ones that are going to benefit the most.
Yep.
Talk to us about how you ended up scaling, your business. You talked about getting that first property, and I always say you learn so much on that first property, becoming a landlord and just doing the whole thing. Talk to us about how the next couple properties looked and where you're at today.
The second one, I still hold today. I've had the same tenant now for, I think, 15 or 16 years. Wow. I am well below market, but she is a sweet old lady, and I wouldn't want somebody to keep jacking my grandmother's rent up either. So I told her that if the insurance goes up or the condo dues go up, I have to raise it. But I'm only raising maybe $25, $30 a year. And I'm probably $500 below market on that. How I acquired that one was a retail client was like, hey, I want to sell this and buy a single family. I looked at the numbers and I'm like, I can cash flow this. Hey, how about I offer you this, which essentially was retail minus all of the agent fees and so on and so forth. And it's a great deal. So that's how I acquired my second one. Third one, I actually bought from my dad when he retired, and he was getting rid of all of his rental properties he had acquired here in Maryland. He moved to Florida, so took the money from here and just went and bought them down there because he self-manages. And he was able to pick up more properties. So that got me into that one. 4 and 5 was my first duplex. And with that one, I just used a home equity line, thinking I'm like the most creative guy out there. That was funny. And so that's how I acquired that one. I should have refinanced that one into fixed debt because as those rates shot up almost overnight, it crushed my cash flow. I'm still cash flowing on that property, but I should have refinanced out earlier.
Yeah. So I think a HELOC is a great tool for like cash offers, but then like you were saying, then you roll it into a fixed rate term. So I do think you're still wicked smart because there's lots of people that don't. We think about that kind of stuff. Our circles do, so we don't feel special, but that's something that most people don't think about doing to tap into their equity.
Yeah. So that was, what year was that? I'm not sure. Within the last, I'd say within the last 10 years is when I bought that one.
Okay.
And then we ran into, 2000 or 2019, 2000, 2001, and everything was shooting up. Now, I wasn't in the market 04, 05 as things were shooting up, but my dad was. So I was getting some insights from it, and then seeing the aftermath of what happened with that. So I was like, all right, so what goes up must come down. And I was like, all right, something is going to change, and I don't know what that's going to be. So that's when I took to YouTube University and just started looking for answers. And that's when I stumbled upon Pace. I studied a lot of his videos for probably 30 hours. It was like, all right, this seems really weird, but I like it. I've never heard anything like this. Is it real? Is it, the typical mindset of a confused mind says no. So I studied and I studied and I studied 30, 35 hours before I made the call. I made the call, learned a whole lot more, and signed up the next day. And that was about 3-4 years ago. I think May will be 4 years. And since then, my investing game has amplified drastically. At the most I've held was, I think the highest I've been to was like 32, 33 properties with different partnerships. And now I am currently at 28, all owned by myself.
Yeah.
And being able to scale that much was a lot of the stuff that I learned from the subject to mentorship of creative finance. A lot of my first subject to property was one of my regular retail sellers. Normally I would have walked in with 3 different options. We can use my fix and list program where I will come in and help somebody flip their own house. Part of having my own renovation company is what kind of brought those two things together. And, we'll take a down payment. I will design it. I will, oversee it and kind of be the GC on things to make sure everything gets done, make sure it gets done right. And even more importantly, gets it done on time. So we would take a deposit and then I would carry the rest until closing. Well, what that has done is help my clients be able to produce more money off of their sale, because now we have a turnkey ready to go house that doesn't need any work. Well, for me as a listing agent, I just put out, gold next to, not gold. So my listings were selling, yes, market conditions, but overall my listings were selling a lot faster because they didn't need any work. The sellers were making a lot more money. I was making a few extra bucks on the financing, the renovations, and just the management of it. And it just started working. I'm still doing that program today, and it's been phenomenal.
Yeah. Plus you collect agent commissions, and if you have a crew, you keep them busy, because that's sometimes the hardest thing is between your own personal jobs is keeping the crews busy.
Yes, 100%.
So you also talked about, that was one of the options you provided sellers, right? Which is, for those who are listening, it's a value proposition, right? You want to show why you're worth not only your commission, but Chris is talking about how we can sell your home faster, how it's, yes, there's a deposit, but, it can net the seller more money. But you also mentioned, talking about the subject to and the creative financing and things like that help scale your business. And for those who don't know, obviously Pace Morby's a big advocate for this creative space. Definitely check him out on YouTube if you want to learn a little bit more. But how has that helped you, and what have you done to grow your business in that realm?
So going back to how I got that first property, I walked in with, hey, we can do a fix and list, we can rent it, or we can sell it as is. Now that I had that subject to knowledge in, now I had a fourth option to give that seller. Because ultimately as agents, our job is to take in the information and figure out exactly what that seller wants to have happen and do everything in our power to make that happen. So I was able to negotiate the deal out, doing it subject to, and I still hold that property today, and that's cash flowing $650 a month. All by using, OPM, other people's money.
And
It was a good loan. It had been seasoned like 8 or 10 years, I think. So a lot of those interest payments have already been made. So a lot of the payments that my tenant's making are paying a lot of that down. I do plan to sell that one in a year. It's in Germantown. Great house, good condition. I would love to be able to sell it to the tenants because I've had the same tenants the whole time, and they're just phenomenal people. So really drawing the investor and the agent together, I just have a lot more tools in my belt to offer sellers now to, if they're in trouble or they have a ton of equity and they don't necessarily want to pay taxes on all of that. How to, I can go, no, I'm not an accountant or a lawyer, but I can show you how to structure a deal so that you're paying as minimal tax as possible.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, subject to is essentially where you buy a property, the deed goes in the buyer's name, but the loan stays in the seller's name, and you're continuing to pay the loan even though it's in the seller's name. How do you, and there's benefits, which you mentioned, like taxes and other things, talk to an accountant, we are not them. How do you give the seller ease? Because I feel like a lot of people are like, and a lot of agents I've talked to are like, why would any seller want to do that? How do you know the buyer isn't going to screw you over? Like, how do you give them that peace of mind, or how do you, what tactic do you take with sellers?
For me, and I don't do a lot of wholesaling. I've done some, but anything that I'm really going to present that on, it's really because I want to buy it myself.
Yeah.
And having a track record of, been in the business for 10, 15, 20 years, it helps. And, one of the things I always tell people, like, look, my name is my brand, is my reputation. If I do a bad job for you, you're going to tell 100 people. If I do a good job for you, you're going to tell 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always just kind of operated, even as a kid, of, if you say what you're going to do and do what you're going to say.
So, Chris, how do you, Anna and I, we really love learning about the investing side, right? And you talked about going to YouTube University, studying 30 hours before you actually did it. How do you, I know you mentioned like you present to sellers 3 or sometimes 4 different options, but you also don't want to confuse them, right? Because a confused mind is they automatically say no. You as as a listing agent, in your example, how are you like trying to not dumb it down, but like try and simplify some of these things that could sound complicated, especially when you start talking about terminology?
Right. And the line I like to use is, explain it to me like I'm 5.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, makes it a lot better for me. And going back to what I was saying earlier, when I had to recreate everything and then be able to present it to my dad, it's no different. So you have to study the client, know their, their ins and outs. And is it more work? Of course it is, but it works. And if you're going to do what's best for that seller, then you're going to do what's best for that seller. Now, it worked out to where the subject to option was the best route for both of us. Great. Gave them some money, took over the mortgage, and everything has been, smooth sailing since. Still in contact with that seller every quarter, give or take. Just phenomenal human being. And she was in a tight spot. So for the agents that say, why would anybody do this? A lot of creative financing is generally for the lower 15% of the market and the higher 15% of the market. That lower 15% is generally somebody in trouble. I can't afford this. I can't, job loss, job relocation, whatever the case may be. And then the top 15% is generally people that are trying to figure out how to, avoid taxes or save money or something to that end, basically. The middle of the road, they don't need it. So they're not going to do it. Would it benefit them? Maybe. Some yes, some no. But if somebody can go retail, it's probably in their best interest to go retail.
Yeah. So for the agents that are listening, I mean, Chris, obviously from your dad, has a lot of sales experience, and, the old saying, we have two ears, one mouth. So whenever you're going to these sellers, listen to what they really need. If they're saying they're going through a divorce, and obviously, listen to them, understand the story. And then you can kind of go in the back of your brain as an investor friendly agent to say which strategy would make sense, offer 2 or 3 different options, and then make them make the decision, right? Right, Chris?
Uh-huh.
So I think that's the great story. And I want to talk specifically about investor friendly agents, right? So, I like to consider myself, all 3 of us are agents. We're all investors. What would you say makes a good investor friendly agent?
Really, they would have to be doing it themselves. One thing that I've, held, one thing that I think is true from forever ago until forever forward. If you're not doing it yourself, then how are you able to advise somebody on it? Because there's a lot of missed things, even doing it for so long. There's sometimes where I'll do something and why did I forget that? How did I forget that? And I do this stuff every day. So if your regular, traditional agent is going to go help you find an investment property, but they've never done a transaction for a client or they've never done it themselves, how are they able to advise somebody on that? So one thing I look for in an investor-friendly agent is, do they invest themselves? Whether it's buy and hold, fix and flip, wholesale, anything under the umbrella of investing. If they're not doing it themselves, they're probably not the best person to try to work with on something like that.
I think that's one of the questions Anna mentions almost every episode when I ask that question. They're like, are you an investor friendly? Are you an investor yourself? Right? Because like what you just said, Chris, like if they're not walking the walk and they don't understand ARVs and they don't understand what makes a good deal, yes, somebody can give them a piece of paper that says this is my buy box and they can put it in the MLS, but they don't really understand why those numbers make sense to them, right?
Correct.
My first question is actually, do you know what a buy box is? Because that's number one. Half of them are like, I don't know what a buy, like, what does that mean? And so I'm like, oh, you're.
No, and before I really educated myself, I was that agent. Yeah, I invested myself, but it was all traditional. You're 20 to 25% down, full documentation, anything and everything under the sun, documentation wise, that you could think of. And I, thought I was creative at that. I wasn't. Now, especially now knowing what I know now, it's like, wow, okay, my eyes are wide open. And trying to translate some of this stuff to some of my really seasoned investors that I work with, it's not even for them. It's not translating through. They're like, well, why would somebody do that? Because they're in trouble or they're smart. I don't know. The middle of the road people, it's not going to work for because they don't need to.
Yeah. I'm going to say thank you, Dad, again, because your dad, see, those are the seasoned investors that are doing it a certain way and they don't want to pivot because it's always worked. And now you have to reframe it for them. I'm going to say thank you to Dad one more time.
Well, hey, yes, 100%. It's funny now because now, the roles have been reversed. So he'll be, what crazy stuff are you working on now? And I'll go through some of those stuff and he goes, what? Whatever. Just good luck. Go, have fun. He's like, how did you?
Some money.
And he goes, and that's, and one of the things, especially dealing with, if I'm calling a listing agent on a property I'm looking at buying, be like, hey, are they open to anything creative? What's that? And there again, a confused mind says no.
Yeah.
So trying to educate everybody on that is next to impossible because a lot of people don't want to know that.
Yep.
And it's sad for the industry overall that there's so many more options out here. And, going through real estate school, it's been a long time, but they just teach the fear of don't get sued, don't get sued, don't get sued. They don't actually teach you how to do the business.
That is completely accurate.
Yeah.
100%. And it's, oh, have you ever heard of, something like Subject 2? Yeah, that stuff's illegal.
No.
A third of my portfolio is Subject 2. I hold a real estate license. So if I was doing something illegal, I wouldn't have my real estate license anymore. And that's one of the things that I bring up to potential sellers is, if this was illegal, I wouldn't have a license. I wouldn't have a career anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And that kind of helps set them at ease. The agents, majority of them just want to be right.
Yep.
So
I was gonna
I
say
know
even
that
things
that
like
one's
seller
not-
finance. Yeah, even
Yeah,
seller finance
well, no,
scares
they
them.
can't do that. They can't do that. And a
Yeah.
lot of times, as an agent, and again, this was me before I educated myself. When they hear investor, they think they're getting cut out.
Yeah.
I don't want to cut an agent out. I want to make a relationship with that agent. Because if I make a relationship with a seller and I close a deal, great. They might refer me one person.
Yeah.
Versus if I make a relationship with that agent, I might get one deal a year for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's a scarcity mindset that I have found, like being an agent and becoming an investor. I've seen that where agents have that scarcity mindset that they're just hunting for that next transaction and there never seems to be enough transactions for everyone. And then the investor who's like, I'm building relationships because I want the long game. I don't want just the next transaction. I want the next 20.
Yes. Yeah. Never chase the deal, chase the relationship.
Yeah.
And that's,
so when
that's
you
one
have
thing that I
a,
try to,
oh, sorry, go ahead. No. Finish your statement. And I have a question.
I say, and that's one of the things that I try to teach people at our local meetups, and also my coaching students.
Ooh,
It's
we'll
just
talk more
don't
about
chase
that.
the deal. Don't chase the deal. Chase the relationship.
Yeah.
Learn from each transaction, learn from each relationship, stack those skills and take them into the next one and keep making it better. And that's how time and patience will help you scale.
Yep. For those listening, pause, rewind, listen to the last 10 or 15 seconds on the loop for a couple times because that's golden nuggets there. My one question, and then I'll turn the floor back over to Nico, was when you do have that middle, when you're going to a listing appointment and you have that middle segment you were talking about, not the top 15, not the bottom 15, do you still educate them or present these creative ideas to them just to have like for informational purposes, or do you not bother because you know it's not really for them?
It depends on the person. I'll give you an example. I just put a townhouse under contract in Newmarket. They bought a new house. They were fortunate enough to be able to buy close before they had to sell, but we kind of did them in conjunction because they didn't want to have to carry both payments. We were on the market for a few weeks and we were getting showings, nothing crazy, but we weren't getting offers. And they were starting to get a little nervous. So I was like, hey, I do a lot of creative stuff. Here is an option. If, we had, I think when we had the conversation, we had 2 showings scheduled like 2 or 3 days down the road. And it was like, if nothing pans from this, here's another option. It was a subject to option, technically a hybrid because they did have a bunch of equity in it. I was like, here's roughly what I can do. And I just sketched out a couple numbers on a piece of paper and they were contemplating it. It was like, look, this is probably not for you. And that's one of the biggest things to, I guess, open with is, hey, you're probably not going to like this. So don't worry about telling me no. I would prefer you to tell me no than to drag this thing out. Because now I know it's either a hard no or a hard yes. And now I'm either focused on making this happen or I'm moving on to the next property. One of those buyers came through, negotiated a great contract, and I think it's supposed to close in like a week. If it didn't work out, then, maybe I would have bought it. Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe they'd let it sit on the market. So it's going to be client specific. Some people are just going to say, heck no. No different than we hear from any seller that we're talking to about anything creative. If they just say straight up, heck no, they either can't do it, won't do it, or don't understand it. Mm. So there's really only 3 things that can come from that. It's a yes, no, or maybe. That maybe is a list, very long list.
Yeah. I mean, that third thing, the people that don't understand it. So for all the agents that are listening, all of us are investors. And I know when I first went to a meetup and I was learning about like seller finance and things like that, I was like, I didn't understand any of it, but I was very intrigued, right? And I think all of us are curious and we wanted to learn a little bit more. So for those who are agents, the traditional agents are fantastic. We love them, but we encourage you to learn a little bit more about the investing space so you can help your clients like Chris, where it might not make sense to go to the market the traditional way if somebody needs to sell their house within a week. Otherwise, they get foreclosed on. So you can give them another option. That's where you come in as a listing agent, where you show your value and you can help them out of a tough situation, right?
Well,
So I did want to kind of want to pivot, Chris, because I know we're getting close on time, and I want to talk about property management because I know we had an episode, and Anna will probably have a bunch of questions about this. But when you started, it sounded like you started early with your long and foster days and learning a little bit about that. But what makes a good property manager? We'll just start with that.
Attention to detail. No different than a good agent or just anybody good in business, in my opinion, is somebody that pays attention to the details. Making sure, and it's a lot of the little things, making sure that everybody gets notified that, the outside hose bibs get turned off when it starts to get cold. So there is no issue. Make sure that the air filters are getting changed in the HVAC, if not every 60 days, every 90 days. And communication, again, no different than any other business. A property manager that communicates is a good property manager. And that's to the tenants and the owners. Hey, I want to know what's going on with my property. And right now we're managing about 20 properties for clients. Not a big company, but we're obviously looking to pick up more, but who in business isn't looking to do more? So we have the mindset of serve, and that everything else just kind of pans through from that. I invest out of state as well and have some of those property managers. And I think some of these other companies that end up working for me, I'm picking up tips off of them to help improve mine, because they're doing, one company I think manages 300 doors, another one's managing 600 doors. How do you do that? It's the right people in the right places and the right systems. And that's how they're able to scale their business that much. I'm like, I don't know if I want 600 doors because that's a lot.
Yeah.
50, 100. Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
That was actually going to be my next question, Chris. Is, it sounds like you have a manageable portfolio that you're helping and you're, doing on your own. But what are some of those tips for those, other people invest out of state and maybe they're dealing with a property manager that does have 600 units or 300 units? What are some of those tips that, you can relay to people to look out for in their property manager?
The two that I just referred to, I actually inherited. I did some private loans on a couple of things that I ended up having to take back, and I inherited those property managers, and thankfully I got very lucky on that. But overall, it's just the communication, the details. Both companies have portals to where I can go check anything. So if I'm working in the middle of the night, I can go in and check on everything, see what funds went where, the ledgers, all of those things. So a manager that can provide essentially 24/7 access to all of the numbers. How do you not do that in business now? Because there's so much software out there, and especially even more now with all the AI. You should be able to pull your phone up and know where every single dollar went on that.
Yeah. No, so I was going to say, I know you inherited these property managers. It sounds like you're having a good experience, but for those who are looking to actually hire one, other than knowing how many units they do, and it sounds like communication is very important. How do they communicate? How do we like to be communicated as actual landlords? Right. Is there any other questions that you'd recommend to actually ask these property managers?
My favorite question is, can I talk to some of your other clients? And that then stems multiple different avenues. If they kind of like, oh, no, we can't do that, that's a big red flag. Now, if they say, no, we can't do that because of our client's confidentiality, and they say it nice and calm, okay, probably. Well, would you mind reaching out to, one or two that may be open to having a 5-minute conversation with me? Sure. And then just 20 question that other owner, how's their communication? Are their payments on time? Are they making sure your house is taken care of? Do you know everything that they're doing? For me personally, I don't want to know everything they're doing. For me personally, I don't want to hear from my property manager all the time. That's what their portal is for. If I need a piece of information, I can log into that portal and get it without bothering them, disrupting their day because they're out doing their job. So I always like to, ask, can I talk to those clients? And if they're like, yeah, sure, here's the top 5. Great. They've already prepared for that. So they knew that question was coming. So that tells me, just by having that ready already, that tells me that they're, a step or two above everything. So those are probably the two ways I look at that in terms of what path to go down.
So I have to ask this question. It's for me and for learning. So my husband, super engineering techie, knows how to fix stuff. Great. We have property managers. He looks at the invoice at the end of the month. He's like, why did they charge us so much for, I don't know, turning on the faucet to the outdoor shower? Like, how do you deal with those situations? And maybe it's because we've had bad property managers. Like when you look at things and you're like, I know that shouldn't cost that much, especially because you're a contractor, or like, how do you manage those expectations on your end?
Read your management agreement before you sign it.
Okay.
Because it's all spelled out in there. And if it's not, now you have, justification for action. But number one thing, read through your management agreement because it's all spelled out in there. So if it's $200 to get a plumber out, but that manager has to go out, there's probably a 10% upcharge on that $200 for that manager to go out, paying for their time. Not necessarily something we want to do. Not all of them charge it, but the big ones do.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's just the little nickel and dime fees that, as an owner, like, what the heck? Why is that? Where did I put all my money? Why are you spending without telling me? Yeah. I've had those moments, and then shot a message to the management company, got a call back within less than 24 hours, broke everything down. Okay, I don't necessarily like it, but I understand it. And moving forward, can we do X, Y, Z?
Communication.
Again, everything falls back to communication, but ultimately read that management agreement.
Yeah, because in that management agreement will, lay out if something's, for example, under $500. If Chris talks about peace of mind, right? I don't want to talk to them for every little light bulb that they need to fix. So they handle that, depending on what you want. Whether you're more passive, you're like, hey, everything under $1,000 or everything under $5,000, whatever you feel comfortable with, then they'll do it. But obviously, you want to make sure that they're doing it correctly, getting receipts and things like that, right, Chris?
Correct. And there again, my threshold is $500. If you have my permission to not call me and spend $500 with my management company, I do the same. Mm-hmm. I have found that some people will agree to that up front, but then when their check shows up $500 short, they're not happy. Okay. What, Mr. and Mrs. Owner, how would you like to proceed from here? Again, communication, service. That's it. This is, our titles are, investor, realtor, property manager. It's all customer service. At the end of the day, we are in customer service. How many clients we can serve, how many clients we can serve well is the ultimate reflection of our business.
Awesome, Chris. We are running close on time, and I've really enjoyed this convo. We're talking about property management and agents and things like that. But outside of real estate, what do you like to do outside of real estate? Do you have any hobbies?
5 kids.
Other than the 5 kids.
Number one is spend time with my wife and my family. My kids are all into different sports, so I try to be at as much of that stuff as I possibly can. But if I'm being selfish, fishing. I love offshore fishing, pelagic fish, get on a boat and go 60, 90 miles to the middle of the ocean and, pray to Poseidon that, he doesn't sink the boat and he sends us a lot of, big fish to eat, or just catch in general. So anything from tuna to marlin, I travel the world doing that stuff, and I love it. I'm also into hunting, and for the sport, but also for the food. I actually had deer steak for dinner last night. It's delicious. And really just kind of anything outdoors. I'd like to kind of tinker around stuff, even though I do own the renovation company. I still do a lot of like the small project stuff myself. Because it's like, yeah, I could pay my guy to do that, but I don't really feel like doing work right now, so I'm gonna go do this work. That was my weekend this past weekend. Worked on my barn.
Yeah, that sounds fun. So you've been in the business for quite some time, right? And you've been through, the Great Recession and things like that. What is some advice you would give, your younger self getting into real estate that now?
Aside from house hack.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Buy cash flowing assets, not liabilities. Could be retired by now if I would have taken the money that being a realtor and a property manager made instead of lifestyle, scaled the lifestyle back some or kept it lower, whatever. And then bought more rental properties faster. Because one of the lines that I heard that I love is it may not be the best time to buy real estate, but there's never a bad time to own real estate.
Right.
So, if it's a cash flowing asset, then it's going to produce more income, of course. And then over time, rents are going to keep going up. Property values are going to keep going up. But if I have fixed debt 30-year on that thing, then this number is going to stay the same outside of taxes and insurance, but this number is going to keep growing exponentially. So I would have scaled back lifestyle because every market changes. And in 2020, I had a team of 7 and we sold 96 homes and I did about 56 of those myself. That market's not here.
Yeah.
Now, I used to do 4 or 5 deals a month. Now I'm doing 1 or 2 deals a month. That's a big hit. But having my rental portfolio fills a lot of those gaps. So if I'd had a larger portfolio sooner, then I could have taken all of those money that I enjoyed and bought more assets instead of spending it on liability. So number one thing I could tell any investor, even an agent, is have a war chest and buy cash flowing assets. And it doesn't have to be real estate. If stocks are your thing, do stocks. If it's crypto, do crypto. I like real estate because I have insurance on the property. And even if that property burns down, I still own the dirt and I still have the insurance that will rebuild most of it, if not all of it.
Yeah.
It's
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Love that book. Love that book.
Well, great segue. Speaking about books, I know your meetup is called Who Not How, but want to know what you're reading now and anything that you'd recommend for, any agent or any first time investor, anybody really that you'd recommend.
I just finished one. I do a lot of audiobooks because I'm in the car a lot. I just finished Russell Brunson's Expert Secrets. I think it's an older one, but phenomenal book. I highly recommend that. And I'm currently reading The Go-Giver.
Classic.
Great book. And there's another audio book, Games People Play. Jay actually turned me on to that one. It's very psychology based, and I took too much time off of it. I think I'm gonna have to start that one back from square one because it's extremely detailed. And every time I try to turn it back on, I'm like, I'm confused. I gotta start this over. So there's definitely some books that I highly recommend.
I'm adding them to my cart as we speak.
Same. And you mentioned Jay, and I know you guys host a meetup. You want to talking about how, first of all, community has been helpful for you and what you talk about at your local meetups?
Yes. So another great book is Who Not How, which is where the name for our meetup came from, because it's never how you're going to do something. It's who you're either going to get to do it or who you're going to do it with. Jay and I met 2-ish years ago, I guess, and he just a phenomenal human being. He had reached out for help, so he and I started a weekly mastermind. So he and I meet once a week and help each other solve whatever other person's business problems are, celebrate each other's wins, and then I've been doing the meetup now for about give or take 2 years. And it just seemed right. So I'm like, hey, you're here at every single one of these. You're providing value to anybody and everybody that shows up. Why don't you just co-host these things with me? And it's been, awesome for the last, I'd say he jumped on board with me for like the last 6 months on that. So, but what we discuss is a lot of the creative finance, buy and hold, multifamily, how to structure a creative deal. And that's a lot of what I bring. And then also the agent input. Where Jay comes in is the wholesaling, the land, the flipping, a lot of just the other side of stuff that I don't do. I know it, but I don't do it. And he is in it day in and day out and does it. So I think bringing the two together gives us the opportunity to provide as much value for people as possible.
Okay. And if people want to go to these meetings, how do they find out about these meetings and attend?
Find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook group, Who Not How Mastermind. It's an open group, so you should be able to find it easily. And we host our in-person meetups once a month at my Remax office in Germantown. All the details are on the Facebook page there. And then we also do a monthly virtual meetup every third Wednesday. And that's on Zoom. All of the links for everything to register for that are in that same Facebook group.
Yeah, and I can vouch for those masterminds. Anna and I both host masterminds as well. Chris's is awesome. It's very conversational. People just come with their not problems, but their situations of deals. We can do deal analysis. The conversation's just different every time. So I highly encourage anybody who's looking to get into investing to go to Chris's, come to ours. We also host the Cashflow Breakfast Club as well. I have a question selfishly for you, Chris. What have you gained as being like a host? I feel like I've gained so much just like putting myself out there and honestly learning a lot. But what benefit has it been for you?
And selfishly, it's made me better. Because again, if I'm having to break something down to reteach it to, my mind runs this way, but if I'm getting one from question over here, here, and here, I now have to rethink everything, break it down for this person this way, break it down for this person this way, break it down for this person this way. And I enjoy doing that because it just makes me better at it. And the better I can explain something, the more people I'm going to be able to help. So that's probably the thing that I would say is the most beneficial personally. And just meeting people, finding potential partners, finding potential deals. I went to somebody else's meetup and ended up buying one of their properties. They were like, hey, we're going to be selling this thing. Here's it at. And they were traditional investors. I went to them with a seller carry on the second. I'm like, do you know what any of this is? No. Do you want to know? Yes. Can we work this out? Probably. What are you talking about? And I sketched everything out for probably 20 minutes. And like, here's what it's going to look like. I'm not going to argue on your price. I think you're spot on there. And here's how we're going to do everything. So I got a loan for 70% with a DSCR loan, debt service coverage ratio, just an investor loan, no documentation, and a seller carry on the remaining 30%, which was essentially my down payment. So I bought a multifamily with no money out of my pocket. Now, yes, I still had to pay for closing costs and I'm going through renovations, but I bought a $360,000 property that appraised for $380,000 for, by the time it's all done, about $30,000 out of my pocket. With the renovations, it's going to increase my cash flow. So I'll have all of that 30 grand back in less than 3 years.
All
and
because
then
you were
that property is just an infinite return.
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing to buy and hold that I really want to get through. You're going to go negative for a few years. If those few years are for me, 2 is a perfect world. 3 to 4 is good, and I'll still do 5.
Yeah.
So if I can get my original money back within under 5 years, it's a great deal.
That's a great tip.
Yeah. Great tip. And also all because you went in person and met this person. I something about in-person meetups where you're actually like seeing this person and understanding the numbers, you're sketching it out. I love that. Our last question we asked this to every guest is, how can Anna and I and our audience help you? Is there anything that, other than promoting your awesome mastermind, anything else that you're looking for that you need help with in business?
Yeah, like what's this coaching thing that you talked about?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yes. I don't promote it a lot because I do turn most people down. But I coach creative finance. A lot of the people that I work with are wholesalers that are one-trick ponies that want to know more. They've got a database full of dead leads that could potentially turn into something.
Yep.
I help them kind of understand how to go through the process, how to structure the process, how to negotiate the process. And a handful of times I'll even get involved and work the deal with them. So I really do enjoy it, but unless somebody is extremely hungry and ready to go, I basically disqualify them. And that's just from experience because I've taken on students that were like, yeah, I'm ready to go. And then a week later, they're like, well, maybe, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, they don't want to do the hard.
It turned me off. So I'm not for everybody. I'm not cheap, but I'm usually available and I love to help if somebody wants to grow and scale.
Awesome. Chris, this has been so much fun. And how can people reach out to you? Do you have any social media?
Do you want people to find you?
I would say YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn are the platforms I'm on. Across pretty much all of them is at Chris Thompson Real Estate. And I have a ton of stuff on my website. You can book a call with me there if somebody would like to learn about anything that we covered today or even more, because I think we just scratched the surface. But christhompsonteam.com is my go-to spot.
Awesome. Yeah, we did just scratch the surface. We'll have to have you come back on.
But that's going
to do it for another episode of the Agent to Investor podcast. Please like, share, subscribe if you found any value. And you can reach out to me at N Garcia Official on all social platforms. And you can reach out to Anna at
I'm Anna Balick _realtor on Instagram and Anna Balick everywhere else. And before we say goodbye, because I said I was going to ask this question, how long did it take you to grow that beard? And that's impressive.
If I had to start over tomorrow, I would say it'd take me about 9 to 10 months.
That's it?
I'm Irish and Italian.
Wow. Okay. All right.
For those listening on audio, you got to go check us out on YouTube to check out Chris's awesome beard.
I mean, this is Santa Claus quality beard here. Like, this is like impressive. That's it.
It used to be a lot darker. So I figured another couple of years and I'm going to be competing with Santa Claus.
That's right. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Tune into the next one.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.